All right, I want to welcome everybody to the December 11th, 2023 Pine-Richland School Board Combined Meeting. I'd like everybody to please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, Mrs. Williams.
Mr. Morset,
Here.
Mrs. Turchick,
Here.
Mr. Kashani,
Here.
Mrs. Brusalis,
Here.
Mr. Cassidy,
Here.
Mrs. Fortier,
Here.
Mrs. Hillman,
Here.
Mrs. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Weethorn.
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we'll move to item 1.02, student and staff recognition. And I believe Mrs. Hassinger, is she online today?
She is, yes.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. Pine-Richland High School earned AP Gold Honor Roll recognition for the 2022-2023 school year. Only 3% of eligible schools in Pennsylvania and only 2 other schools in Western Pennsylvania earned this designation. The AP School Honor Roll recognizes schools whose AP programs are delivering results for students while broadening access. Schools can earn this recognition annually based on criteria that reflect a commitment to increasing college-going culture, providing opportunities for students to earn college credit, and maximizing college readiness. Throughout the holiday season, all of our Pine-Richland school communities have demonstrated extraordinary generosity. Pine-Richland High School student government coordinated with all district schools to collect toys for the 96.1 KISS FM Stuff a Bus program. They delivered 6 buses full of toys that were donated to Toys for Tots. Richland Elementary School raised over $19,000 for the KDK Turkey Fund, more than any other school in the Pittsburgh area. Wexford Elementary School raised nearly $14,000 for the KDK Turkey Fund. In 19 years of participation, Wexford has raised over $400,000 for the program. Eden Hall Upper Elementary School families donated over 6,000 boxes and items to Inspired Hearts and Hands through their annual food fight program. Pine-Richland Middle School Leaders Club collected over 600 non-perishable food items and toiletry items to donate to local organizations. And I'd like to add, this wasn't in the document, but I know there are others. Just today I saw that the high school Future Business Leaders of America delivered 4 carloads of donated goods to Inspired Hearts and Hands, and I know that there's plenty more going on, and the generosity and spirit of giving throughout the district is truly remarkable. Junior Georgia Rottinghouse was named the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Field Hockey Player of the Year. Senior Luke Polito was named Student of the Month at A.W. Beatty for Health and Nursing Sciences for October and November. The Pine-Richland High School Forensics team earned the 2nd place sweepstakes trophy at the Duquesne University Invitational Tournament on December 2nd. 17 schools and 179 competitors participated in the event. Pine-Richland was awarded in the large schools category for winning 6 individual student awards, including 1st place for senior Udi Appelkar and Lincoln Douglas Debate, and 1st place for senior Kevin McLaughlin in poetry. Several Pine-Richland students have been selected to participate in PMEA district and regional music events this fall and winter. Students earn their spot in these prestigious concerts and festivals through a competitive audition process. Tonight, we're fortunate to have several of these students in attendance for in-person recognition. Please stand when I say your name. Sophomore Ryan Noir represented Pine-Richland High School in the PMEA District 1 Honors Band the weekend of November 17th at North Hills Middle School. Ryan, along with juniors Liliana Bogle and Will Timbury and sophomore Jiwon Lee, have been selected to perform at the PMEA District Band West Festival January 27th through the 29th at Duquesne University. Junior Ryan Kim and sophomore Morgan Ratty represented Pine-Richland High School at the PMEA Honor String Orchestra Festival the weekend of November 17th at Mount Lebanon High School. Both Ryan and Morgan have also been selected to participate in PMEA District 1 Senior High Orchestra in February. Chloe Chang, Brooke Deegan, Lumi Foster, Mackenzie McCurry, Sophia Priori, Kate Rickard, and Owen Russell were selected to the PMEA District Choir Festival to be held at Cannon McMillan in late January. Congratulations to all of you on your musical performances.
Very good. Congratulations, everyone. With those smiles on your faces, it's very nice to see. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 1.03. It's a recognition of visitors. And I want to remind you, on that TV will be a countdown for 3 minutes, because each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes allowed to speak. And is it on?
Well, no, do we want to let our students go? Just
Oh.
let them know.
Oh, do we want to let the students go?
Yeah, the
Yes.
students want to go
Mr.
home.
Morissette, can I add something? Mr. Rickard, our choir teacher's here as well. I just want to
Oh.
acknowledge him, so
Oh,
thank you.
okay,
Oh.
very good, thank you. Yes, they all have homework to do, so they must go home, right? Okay. Okay, we're good. All right, move on to item 1.03, recognition of visitors. As you can see on the television screen, there's a 3-minute countdown. According to the rules, we have a maximum allowed of 3 minutes. What I'll do is to help you is, as you approach that countdown, you can see it because your angle, you'll be able to see it. I'll give you a 15-second warning. At the completion of 3 minutes, I'll say, well, that's it, we're wrapped up, next speaker. I just want to make sure that we have it so we can keep the meeting moving and going forward. Okay, thank you. So, Mrs. Williams, do we have anybody online?
We have one person online for the start of the meeting, and we also have 3 people signed up.
Okay, very
Would you
good.
like to start with the online person?
Yes, let's go to the online.
Mr. Stobener, Brittany Kindersmith. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, you're on with the board.
Thank you. Good evening. Brittany Kindersmith here, parent of 2 children in the district. First, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of the staff members at my kids' school. Mary Brennan is one of the secretaries at HANS, and she is just such a bright spot at the school for the parents and the students alike. My youngest, Holden, he's in kindergarten, and he loves to stop and say hi to her in the mornings. I hear some kind of story about Miss Brennan from him, I think 3 out of 5 school days in the week. She knows him by name and really makes him feel seen and cared about in the building. Even just when I have to call in and say that my kid needs to take the bus instead of being picked up as a car rider, I end up laughing and having a smile on my face by the time I'm done talking with her. She's just really an asset to HANS and to the district as a whole, and I'm grateful for her presence there in the building. Second, I just wanted to circle back to the November meeting that was held at Richland Elementary, and I wanted to express my disappointment at not hearing from the Region 2 directors in the time since the meeting, despite having addressed the board in person and emailing them each twice. I've gotten no response to either email from Ms. Turchek or Ms. Bruce Alice. Mrs. Miller had not yet taken her seat when I last emailed the board, so this is not directed at her. I did receive correspondence from a couple of other directors who do not represent me directly. I wanted to be transparent about that. When community members, parents, and students take time to engage the board repeatedly, and repeatedly we are ignored, dismissed, and even made to watch as some directors roll their eyes during our public commentary, it's not fostering any goodwill or faith in the board. It doesn't inspire confidence that they are taking into consideration the fact that they are meant to be representing everyone in the region, including the kids living there and attending the schools, rather than just the folks who voted for them. I wish all of you luck in working together to ensure learning for every student every day. I'll remind you that our kids are counting on you as you take on your new roles. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you. Our first in-person speaker is Brianna Bayer.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Bayer. I live on Richland Road. I have 4 young kids, one at Eden Hall and one at Hants. I'm also speaking tonight in follow-up to last month's events. Hopefully the new board members coming in tonight watched that meeting where dozens of community members spoke out against the proposed book bans. Hopefully this new board has realized that this is not in the best interest of our students and community and will drop the outrage and ideological panic caused by these manufactured crises. Because if we listen to our board members who showed up last month to express their concerns, books really can save lives. Representation really does matter. The stifling of speech and ideas is no way to move forward in 2023. Never in my life did I think I'd be needing to speak out against book bans, yet here we are. Please also take note that there's not one speaker to stand up and proclaim how books ruined their life. Yet we had incredibly brave speakers willing to talk about how books help them navigate and survive tremendously difficult periods in their lives. Please note that distinction. I hope that we will be able to move on from the embarrassing attention this has brought to our district and from the distraction this is causing our staff. Could we please trust the processes in place, trust our educators, stop wasting time and resources, particularly when a large burden on this is landing on Dr. Miller. Start focusing on moving the district forward and not trying to plunge us into the past. Along these lines, I will preemptively express my concern at an item on tonight's agenda about a legal RFP. This is the very first public meeting of this new board. There's not a single mention of concerns related to our district's legal counsel during the campaign. I would hope, as so many of you have ran on the need for greater transparency, that we will get an explanation as to what has transpired from election time to now to warrant this item on the agenda of this very first meeting. Sure, reviewing contracts periodically is going to be part of the standard operation. However, why tonight? There's 4 new members that have 0 experience with the board's runnings and with the current legal counsel, and there's been no recent discussion from the existing members that we've been privy to. My biggest concern is that the current council had advised against the book ban and procedural changes that were being proposed, and now, with the first meeting with the new board, they're on the chopping block. I'd be thrilled to learn I'm reading too far into this because it seems unlikely to be a coincidence from where we're standing. And if the board is looking for legal counsel to support their overreach, I'm afraid it looks like they're starting on a difficult and costly path for the district. There's an undeniable conservative majority right now, but once again, please look back to last month's meeting to see where community support lies on the board's most recent foray into controversial topics. Please know that you're still here to represent the entire community. We are here and we're paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Barber.
Hello, Dr. Miller, thank you. Dr. J, thank you. Dr. P, thank you. This reconfiguration's a little weird. Feels like the educators are being pushed to the side. I hope that's not a symbolic for what's going to happen for the next couple of years, because they are professionals. There's a reason that we are doing so well, and it's because of the leadership that Dr. Miller has shown, Dr. J has shown, Dr. P has shown. And if you spend time in the schools, then you actually know that. For instance, in the past week, there has been two evenings where Hance's principal, Hance's administrator, Principal Guerin, who spent 2 evenings after school, after leading a school, 400 students and however many teachers she has in her care, staying after to make the parents' night out special, playing toilet tag with the kids that Mr. Hughes came up with, and helping with crafts. And then just the other day at movie night, she dressed up as the Grinch and greeted all the students as they came in, even though her daughter was in from college. She made that point to greet every single kid. And the reveal on the stage was definitely worth it because all the kids got a crack up for when they saw her. So the professionals that have been doing work on the ground, I hope that they are not being pushed to the side and to the back because they know what they're doing and we should be trusting them. And you would know this if you spend time in our schools with teachers like Mr. Hughes, who gave up his Friday evening to lead an hour of gym activities with 30 students from Hans. Every single second of every single game, every single student was involved, whether it was doing math for the little kids in certain games or just all around being included. So I hope that this board trusts the professionals and doesn't come in and just create chaos for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Chris Bono.
Chris Bono, I'm Mike Barber's roommate. I actually have one child in a district, which is unlike 3 of the new board members. And so I want to confess to being a bit apprehensive about the new board. And I hope I'm wrong, right? The mission is to focus on learning for every student every day. There was a lot in the campaign talking about learning loss, talking about how our children are falling behind. And yet, the very first thing we see on the agenda is an action item about an RFP for listeners. Now, I'm all in favor, again, of transparency. And so I'd like to see what that RFP is, because it wasn't included in the public agenda. And why an action item on week 1? Why not a discussion item? Why not an information item and a vote later on? This seems like an attempt to not focus on learning for every student every day. And so I think there's a lot of skepticism. Elections have consequences. I respect election results. And so I think we should also be careful about reading too much into them. It was a very close election, right? The Republican candidates underperformed party registration in the district significantly, right? This is a divided school district. You all have an unenviable task. And so I would encourage you to continue to keep the focus on the students, right? And I applaud those of you who are stepping up, particularly those of you who didn't step up when your kids were in school or when you pulled your kids out of school because of the bathroom. And so I think it's good, though, and better late than never, to take an interest in the education of our school. And as we just saw from the recognition, we're doing pretty damn good. And I think that's something that we want to continue. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for recognition.
That's it? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. Let me turn my machine on. Okay. Item 1.04, correspondence. It's an information item.
Speak. The following people emailed the board regarding books in school libraries: Brittany Kindersmith, Charissa Keller, Sandra Kretz, Corey Smith. David Schapp emailed the board thanking Peter Lyons for volunteering to help PSBA on the audit committee.
Good. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 1.05, minutes for approval. It's an action item. It's a motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached.
Second.
All right, we have a second. Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to the strategic plan update. Item 2.01, 2024 governance subject leads and committee participation. It's an information item as listed. You'll see this reflected in the agenda too as well. So each of the governance subject items, areas will be basically led by the individuals listed here. Moving on to item 3.01, a consent agenda. A motion to approve the consent agenda, items 3.02 through 3.05 as listed.
I think
For 2.01, we were
Oh.
hoping to
Oh.
talk about filling
committees.
those TBDs.
For the
Oh, I'm sorry.
committees.
Thank you. I missed that, okay. All right. So we have committees: professional development, school culture and diversity, sustainability, and technology. Okay.
Are we looking for volunteers or? Are you looking for emails?
I think right now, for the sake, is anybody has interest, which is all represented by the board, anybody has interest in representing professional development, school culture and diversity, sustainability and technology committee, submit those names to myself, and I'll work with the vice president, and we can come up with, and see how the interest and how we divvy that up. Would that work? Would that be okay?
That works for me.
Does anyone want to know anything about those committees? Because we'd be happy to share
Sure,
that.
I think that would be helpful for especially the new
Yeah,
members.
that might inform the
Thank you.
interest.
Thank you very much.
So, professional development is in basically 2 meetings, a mid-year update and then a May meeting every year where we literally plan the entire next year's professional development schedule. So not a lot in terms of meeting time. You'll receive a mid-year update from Dr. Justice in terms of what we have been delivering, what the feedback results have been for the training sessions. And this committee is actually something that's required of us as well as being a good practice. So again, not a lot of time commitment, but if you're interested in, it would probably be a great tie-in to academic achievement, student services, because that's where we see most of the professional development happening. School culture and diversity, we have 2 seated board continuing holdover members who are a part of that. I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that one.
Sure. I'm not sure in what regard here.
Well, explaining what it is that we have done and are planning to do.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, and I know this is on the agenda later as well, is that we have focus groups planned. And those are not just for the 4, well, up to 4 members of the board, but I think in recent past, we've invited all members of the board to attend those. I think they're great opportunities for all of us to hear firsthand the input, especially from our students. They've been really great. And then we also meet Dr. Pasquinelli, how frequently? Every other month?
We've been trying to do a cadence of what we've been calling the core plus 4. So it's the 3 of us, Mr. Glickman, Dr. Miller joins us as well, with 4 board members, and talking about initiatives around culture and diversity and things that we can do to make a positive impact in our schools. So those meetings, then we follow up with sharing updates with the full board to elicit some feedback from them, and then moving into action with those building-based teams. So the cadence is typically every other month, I'd say, we try to get together. But in addition to that, communicating on those types of plans and ideas. So to get some board input while we're planning, to share with the full board to get some additional feedback, and then to get to action for our students and staff within each of our 6 buildings.
Very good.
Okay.
Dr. Miller, not just on the student culture, but are we trying to keep it at 4 members per committee? Is that the goal?
Not necessarily. I think we've had 2 for professional development, so that's fine. I mean, we can take up to 4 for sure.
Has been, as you described, academic achievement and student services, just because we're staff even.
Yeah. School culture and diversity, I think that would be great. And the important part of that one as well, with the idea of expanding focus groups, is all of the board will be invited to focus groups, whether it's with parents or students or whatever the level. This is a critical part, I think, of being able to hear directly from the students or staff members or parents, depending on what is being scheduled. So again, even if you're not a representative, that doesn't mean you won't have opportunity to listen and be directly involved with that. Sustainability is what it sounds like. We have our first and only intentional 6-school club. Dr. Justice leads this, and it focuses on all areas of sustainability within the district and how it connects to our practices. So it could be business and financially related in terms of the systems we have, or it could be educational programs that are happening within the schools. But this was one place where we actually have student reps, and those student reps from all 6 schools come together, again, about quarterly or so, in order to not just do something in isolation, but coordinate. It's pretty cool. I think we had 2 on sustainability, correct?
We did, yes.
Yeah. So 2, I mean, whatever. 4 is fine as well. So there's, and again, those are, because of the 6 school clubs, those are almost exclusively virtual meetings. We don't bring them all together in the same spot. So if you have challenges in terms of availability, that might be a good option. Tech leadership group, again, about twice a year or so. And there's two major aspects to technology that we've thought about over the years. So there's a framework that we've used to describe that. It's called the CASE framework, Classroom Access, Skills, and Environment. The access and the environment is really around the structure, the infrastructure, and other personnel that support that. And then the classroom and the skills is more directly what teachers or students are doing in terms of their technology. So it would be beneficial to have somebody like buildings and grounds around, or operations would be great for that side of the tech house, and then someone from either academic achievement or student services on more of the integration side of the house. So, but again, we could take up to 4. We have historically had 2.
Sustainability could even be around operations to some degree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, same thing.
And there is a liaisonship, I will say, in a partnership that we've forged with both Richland and Pine Townships, and so they're very much a part of and take part in that. So either like some who have had a connection that way, that might be a natural fit too, where it's like the same causes and alignment for consideration.
The only other thing else, it's not a part of this section, but this is, because this is a negotiations year with PREA, there will be some people connected to the negotiations group, which is a pretty significant time commitment. So as that sort of is finalized as well, that might impact some other decisions just because of time
Fair
commitments.
enough, yeah, good point. Okay, thank you. We good on this one? Sorry I missed that. All right, moving on to item 2.01, governance, no, we did that. Consent agenda, 3.01. Okay, this is an action item. It's a motion to approve the consent agenda 3.02 through 3.05 as listed.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion, and it has been made and it's been seconded. Any discussion points? I do have one comment, if I can get some assistance. On the AIU Joint Purchasing Board membership, as I understand that, we are members of multiple schools or multiple areas that look at purchasing. Who can help me with that?
So the IU, that's our Allegheny Intermediate Unit.
Right.
Services all the schools in Allegheny County. They provide additional services for all districts within Allegheny County that make more sense to come from that unit versus each school, either individualized, person, service, some of the other information regarding that. They have the IU also does consortiums. They do paper bidding. for it.
Paper's a good example. Bulk paper purchases through this bulk, there's more people at the table that allows us to get the best price.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
that-
That's where I want, that's
So-
where I thought it was, but I wanted
Yeah.
to be clear. So when you look at item 3.05, which is the interactive display boards, is that part of that purchasing?
No, there are other cooperative purchasing. So CoStars and PEPM are 2 of the joint, sort of the low-cost purchasing programs for items that have across the Commonwealth been sort of pre-negotiated that allow school districts to not have to go out to bid for everything. So there are
Okay.
established low price points for certain items that are on CoStars or PEPM, and so that removes some of the purchasing requirements that are set in other policies. In addition, those levels can be negotiated below the CoStars or PEPM price as well. And Mr. Stobener, everything around technology, he does a great job of really being intentional and assertive about getting the best price. And so
Yeah.
he goes below in many cases as he negotiates and works through that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and speaking of the interactive display boards, that's the reason I asked that question. Some of the board members may not know, but I actually familiar, and I did take a look at it, and Mr. Stauber, a heck of a price. It's a fantastic price. I mean, I was very impressed. I looked at numbers where you could go retail and what you're actually paying according to the information. It's well done.
This is a nugget, I don't know that's ever been shared publicly, but I'll go in the Wayback Machine. After Mr. Stobener was hired, in one of the first bulk purchases of computers in the district since he was here, he negotiated a savings below the CoStars, or I think it was CoStars, but below that price to such a degree that it saved the district in a massive purchase more than the salary he earned in his first year. And so, is that accurate? Yeah.
It's always a good thing.
Yeah, that's an
Well done.
amazing,
Well
amazing
done.
thing.
Yeah, I was very impressed, though. Nice job. At least it has nowhere comparison to the money we talked about previously in the previous meeting, but still, it was very well done.
Every penny counts.
Okay, so, all right, back to the 3.01 consent agenda. We do have a motion. It's been made and seconded. I asked if any discussion. Is there any other discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Phil, just a
Yeah.
point of order. So consent agendas are up to the board to do. And Greg was a big fan of, just to save time, so but it's actually probably not a good thing for a new board, because you have questions about items like that.
Right.
So just in case you weren't aware that was a consent item,
That was
because
it,
Greg
okay.
requested it to be a consent, so we could just as we talk about future meetings and agendas for
We
future meetings,
can individually go through if
we may
see
not
we
want
need-
to do a consent. That way it'll give us, as you guys are getting acclimated, it'll give you a chance to just get through each item.
Very good.
And
yeah.
any board member can request something to be taken out of the
Yeah.
consent agenda if something was in there, like when we do our meeting, just
Now
in
I
case.
understand, just
just
to
in case.
save time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, very good. All right, Mark, speaking of that, we'll move on to 4.01 and let you take this.
Yes, sir. Item 4.01, motion to approve the financial reports dated December 11th, 2023, and accounts payable dated December 11th, 2023, in the amount of $275,518.45, and paid accounts for November, December in the amount of $2,446,855.81 as listed.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Item 4.02, motion to approve budget transfers in the amount of $75,988.24.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 4.03, motion to acknowledge receipt of the Pine-Richland School District Tax Collector Real Estate and Per Capita Tax Audit for the year ended June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 4.04, motion to acknowledge receipt of the 2022-23 Independent Audit Report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And item 4.05 is an informational item. Prior to this meeting, we had a finance governance meeting where we talked about that audit that we just approved, as well as the 2024-25 budget, some of the key variables in that, inclusive of the timeline, and also reference to Mr. Zimmerman's ongoing effort to refresh our 10-year capital funding plan, which will be a key variable in that next budget. So we also want to schedule two additional finance governance meetings, February 12th and May 6th, both beginning at 6. And that is it.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, moving on to items 5, buildings and grounds. Mr. Cassidy?
Item 5.01 is a motion to approve change order number 06 in amount of $25,710.54 as attached. I'll turn this over to Mr. Zimmerman.
Well, I'll second that.
Second
Thank
it.
All right, I just wanted to provide some background on this change order. So this change order was originally brought up to the board in August, on the 7th and the 21st of August. At that time, the architect and actually it's the engineer that was working with us from Tower Engineering, provided us a cost that we thought was going to come in at $19,000. This change order has grown to $29,000 total. We just wanted to bring it up to you so that it didn't look like a surprise, like we were trying to go out of the process. So because of the cost being $29,000, it goes above our originally, what we thought was gonna fall under $25,000, which would only require 2 signatures instead of full board approval. That's why you guys are seeing it tonight. So just wanted to be fully transparent that this one, the change order came up to be more expensive than we thought, but we had it reviewed by Tower Engineering and from Eccles Construction Management. They thought that everything within the change order was fair and reasonable, and that it looked like in line with what they were expecting. So it just became a little bit more than we thought as was originally provided to us, so we wanted to make you fully aware of that and why it's kind of showing up this way. Additionally, just the way that the board meetings kind of played out, we only have one board meeting here in December, so Dr. Miller provided it in his update to you about 10 days ago or so, so you have a little bit of prior notice. So
Right.
just wanted to be fully transparent about that.
Very good, thank you. Any discussion from?
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I feel like we had this discussion, but I'm not remembering how it was explained. Why were these things omitted from the original?
Sure, it was just strictly an omission, and actually Mr. Karpinski was the one that found it on the drawing. So after we had already gone through the bid process and we had it fully flushed out for electrical and all the communication, and there's so much in there with the video board and the scoreboards and everything, that the electrical engineer side on Tower Engineering just left it out as an omission, but it was found out during early stages of the construction process.
Okay. Good. Any other discussions? Anyone? Okay. So we have motions been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Item 5.02 is a motion to accept in accordance with Board Policy Number 702, gift, grants, and donations, and with sincere gratitude, the donation of a bookshelf by Laura West to Eden Hall Upper Elementary Library at the value of approximately $64.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Any points? I'm just curious if, this is very nice with the bookshelf, will there be a plaque or a name on that bookshelf to recognize that it was a donation, or how would that work?
It's a memory of somebody. I believe they have the name on it.
They do have a name.
I do
Okay,
believe so,
that's
yes.
good.
They also receive a letter, a thank you letter on behalf of the board, and also a copy of the votings, and so that they need to use it for some reason.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Ms. Worms. Okay, any other discussion point? Okay, all those in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Item 5.03 is an information item. Administration would like to schedule a Buildings and Grounds Governance meeting on January 22nd, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. to discuss upcoming topics such as roof and HVAC projects.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 6.01, purchase of ESL resource renewal. Mrs. Brucelis.
Item 6.01 is a motion to approve the purchase of updated National Geographic programs, Reach, Edge, and Inside in the amount of $12,922.25.
Second.
Second, thank you. We have a motion, it's been made, and we have a second. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Item 6.02 is an information update. This is an update of the curricular resources that are going to be evaluated this school year, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Pasquinelli.
Thank you, Mr. Salas. Yeah, we'd just like to provide these updates as we go through the evaluation process. So you can see over the course of this year, we have a number of different departments that are evaluating resources. Our ELA teachers are evaluating resources for grades 6 through 9. Our world language teachers are evaluating Spanish. Last year, we approved German and French resources. We're looking at mathematics for our statistics course and pre-calculus course, and in science for environmental science. So they've completed the first round, the different committees of evaluations. We narrow down our vendors from there. And then after that second round occurs, then we'll be coming back to the board with an update, and that's an opportunity where we really like to get our parent and community and student involvement. So we put those items on display for about a week, invite anybody to come out, whether they can do that online or in person, and provide feedback. And then in addition to that, we do the typical 30-day on display. But really like to get as much student, parent, and community input as we can. So this is just to keep everybody updated as we go through the process. The other significant piece that we're evaluating are our 9th grade core text. Now that's been going on now for really 2 years with developing, if you even go back, it would be 3 years with developing the evaluation process for core text. And then we went through the process last year, recommended core text for grades 5 and 8, they were approved, but the committee did not bring a set of text for grade 9, so we wanted to make some modifications there. We did, over the course of end of last year and this year, bring the 3 core texts that we have currently on display. So where we are in that process is they are on display for 30 days here at our library and at Northern Tier. And I'm pleased to say we do have 12 community members that have participated in reading the full one or more of those core texts and providing feedback. We've asked our students to do this over the course of the entire year, really starting in August. We have 12 students that participated as well. So that, again, they took the time to read one or more of those core texts and provide us with feedback. And then the board will see their feedback as part of our executive summary when we make our final recommendation. So this window is closing on January 5th. We thought it's even beyond 30 days to give over winter break and an opportunity to have some good quiet reading time and then submit some feedback to us, and we will make a recommendation for that 9th grade core text at the January board meeting.
At the January meeting, that's when we'll also get recommended of what text they're going to take out of that's currently being used, no? Right?
Possibly.
Okay, or we might not take any out. Okay,
Because we're
I just wanted to.
talking if we don't take something out, there may be a section of that text that still aligns with the instructional goals or learning goals for that particular unit. So we may keep the text, but just not read the entire text.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Will there be another communication sent out? Sorry, over here. Will there be another communication sent out to remind individuals, parents, families, community members of the engagement request? I know there was a form that was sent out on the 14th. Will you guys send it out again prior to the break? Okay.
We will do that, and that is a reminder. So typically after this meeting, we like to get that out to the community because, again, some people are paying attention to our board meetings, some are not. So we'll send it out through our Friday flashes and then a standalone as well.
Thank you. Item 6.03 is an information item, and this is an update regarding the library book request for reconsideration. Dr. Miller?
Yep, sure, thank you. So just again, a brief update. The committee has been formed. An initial meeting was held. That's a committee comprised of 5 staff members and 5 parent/community members. We had an initial meeting to talk through sort of the overall framing of the activity and what they're doing. Those 10 are now reading the 14 titles, so they have some time to do that. We've anticipated sometime in early to mid-January for them to work through those. The meeting that we held was on November 29th. That group of 10 will get together after having read each of the titles against some of the considerations they need to have, and then they will put a recommendation in writing to me for each specific title. Then I will have time to review their input, consider my own as I read all of the 14 titles, and then ultimately make a recommendation to the board.
So are you planning to make a recommendation at once of all of the books, or will we be expecting to see them as each book is reviewed? You will then review it and make your recommendation, or?
As a whole.
As a whole, okay.
Just to be clear, as a whole, with a recommendation for each of the 14 titles.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Item 6.04 is an information item that there will be academic achievement governance meeting. There will be a Academic Achievement Governance meeting on May 20th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. to discuss future in-depth program reviews.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Marsalis. Mrs. Hillman, Section 7.
Agenda item 7.01 is a motion to approve the resolution to a student matter, reference 121123.
Second, sorry.
There you go.
I can't even see the little light.
Yeah, no, you need it darker. Okay, we have a motion has been made, it's been seconded. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Agenda item 7.02 is a motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine-Richland High School wrestlers to travel to Grove City, PA to participate in the Fred Bell Wrestling Tournament from Friday, January 26th to Saturday, January 27th, as described on the attached field trip request form.
Second.
Good. Motion's been made. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Good. Motion passes.
Agenda item 7.03 is a motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine-Richland Forensics Team to travel to Wheeling, West Virginia on Saturday, January 6th to complete in the Forensics Tournament as Friday, March 8th to Monday, March 11th to participate in a drill competition and tour the Air Force Museum as described on the attached field trip request form. Agenda item 7.06 is an information item. The district was advised that the National Assessment of Educational Progress will assess Eden Hall Upper Elementary School students in grade 4 on February 5th, 2024. Assessments by NAEP are congressionally mandated for school districts. However, student participation is voluntary. I don't know if anyone else had anything else to say
The
about it.
only
Dr.
thing that I'll add
Justice?
to that is it's
Yeah.
not the entire fourth grade, it's approximately 50 kids that were selected at random, and they'll take part in one assessment, either math or reading, that it contributes to this. We don't get any reports, on our kids, and they don't get individual student reports, but it helps with that national lookout for education.
Are families made aware if their child is selected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have the responsibility in early January to communicate out to the families who were selected. And so, again, if they choose to decline their students' participation, that is certainly okay, but we are participating on February 5th.
So does say a student or a family decides, I don't want my child participating, does the NAEP come back and select someone else?
do not.
They do not, okay.
Okay. Thank you. All done. All right. Mr. Wheathorn on the staff services.
Sure. Agenda item 801 is an action item. Motion to approve the PREA, PRESPA, personnel and athletic, non-athletic supplementals as attached.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 802 is an action item. It's a motion to approve the student teachers as listed.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 803 is an action item. It's a motion to approve the agreement between Pine-Richland School District and CSI Corporate Security and Investigations, LLC, for security services as attached.
Second.
Good. We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Any discussion on this one? Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 804 is an information item for board consideration at the January planning meeting. The motion to approve the attendance of Emily Dunker to attend the South by Southwest EDU in Austin, Texas, from March 4th through March 7th, 2024. Agenda item 805 is an information item for board consideration at the January planning meeting. Motion to approve the staff attendance and application of Jean Whalen, Director of College and Career Counseling, to participate in counselor information sessions at Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, from February 29th to March 2nd, 2024. Agenda item 806 is a discussion item for board consideration at the January planning meeting. Motion to approve as a first reading, policy 719, drones, as attached.
I can give a little background on that.
Please, please.
So this has come forward recently. Really, athletics has initiated this request for us to consider something like that. I'd say a practical example, if you think about, you attended a football game, there's typically someone with a long pole and a camera above it to film the game, and then they use that to provide feedback. That happens in other sports as well, but I think a lot of us have seen that. So the concept with the drone is to simplify that, put up the drone, capture the film, and go from there. So we started to look into a little bit more. PIAA in the past prohibited drones. They have changed their policy. It's based upon a local decision. So we started to look and speak to some others about that. We had some teachers involved in looking at this and how that could impact our academic programs. Our engineering and technology teachers weighed in, and they see some value in the opportunities for students to engage in this. So we wanted to bring a sample policy to you for conversation, information at this phase, to see if you have any questions, thoughts, comments. PSBA does not have a template policy, so what we designed here we have seen from other school districts, and then we made it our own. So it's our first attempt to develop a drone policy. We added some examples for you to see in there around the academic and athletic opportunities we think that drones could bring to us. We do see some practical things from time to time, whether that's be safety, security, and doing some quick evaluations, or some maintenance things that can help us be a little more efficient with the work with the use of drones. But at this point, it's an informational item. If there's interest in moving forward, then we'd be ready to bring something forward to you in January for that first read.
When you were going through the research for this, what was any downside that you heard from anyone?
Safety, I'd say safety is the biggest concern.
Yeah.
There's a lot of language about the size of the drone, where you're flying the drone, again, not over any spectators, not only participants and things, so it limits the options that we have, so we really have to think about that. There are some insurance implications that Chris is looking into to make sure we have the right insurance coverage as well. But again, there's guidelines in terms of certifications of those that could man the drone or woman the drone as they're working here on campus, but you know, those are things that we have considered through this as well.
And the property and casualty insurer and the carrier, they really outline the safety, what you're allowed to do with these drones. So they really give us a nice outline on the safety of the insurer.
Okay, very good. Do we see this in use in Allegheny County and other school districts? Yeah?
There are some districts that do have a drone policy. It's very much like this. It's a case-by-case approval by superintendent or designee with an application to be able to use it.
Gotcha.
But there are some really interesting things that our teachers are thinking about. So PRTV, like I said, engineering and technology, our robotics teacher is pretty excited about this as a potential opportunity. So again, with the guidance and support and the regulations that are there, I think there's some real opportunities for it.
Good. Yeah, I would add there are schools that use drones that don't have a policy, and that's a concern.
That use drugs? Did I hear you? Or you use drones?
No.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I don't.
No, I know.
I don't. Drones.
Yes.
Yeah, and so this is one area that we want to manage.
Yeah, no, I think it's
don't,
very, it's very interesting. Absolutely.
I had a question. Can you hear me? Have you seen in any of the schools any violations? Once a policy's been in place, have there been any violations, and how do they handle that?
At the others, you mean at the other school districts?
At other school districts, and have you given any thought to what consequences or what you might do when there's a violation of the policy?
I haven't heard of any. We didn't ask that question, you know, have you had those violations, so I don't know for sure. Again, with policy, you know, we think about consequences if you're not following policy. We have to think about those things as well. But again, I think we have it pretty well laid out in terms of the application process and the approval process. If someone would not follow that, yeah, we'd have to talk about what we're going to do as a result.
Does anyone currently hold remote pilot certification?
In this district?
Yes. Okay.
There may be, but I don't know for sure if there are staff members that hold that certification. They are required to have that certification if they were to integrate drones into anything that we're doing here.
So they would, if this becomes policy and they start to use them, someone would have to become certified.
Right, and we
Okay.
wrote that into the policy language as well.
Okay.
So just a fine point on the insurance, Mr. Jeswick. I know you mentioned guidance with respect to safety and all that. That's great. But I would specifically ask our broker to confirm that there's coverage for it.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
It is within the current questionnaire and application that districts are required to fill out when applying for the following year's property and casualty, general liability, and such as I had the current broker, I had that at a prior district, and that drone insurance is always an option for that. So
Okay.
it is available through our current broker carrier.
But do we currently buy it?
I would have to double check on that.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Just,
But we would activate it.
Yeah,
I don't wanna
okay.
give the wrong answer, but
I know
this
the answer.
policy would go in effect, we would purchase that.
Yeah, we did reach out, one of our first steps, to our carrier, and we do not have that level of coverage at this point.
Okay.
So we would have to add that on if we go this route.
okay, thank you. That's what I want to make sure. There's a lot of drone exclusions out there on policy, so.
So we want to get a little bit of feedback and interest of bringing this forward for a first read in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in
I'm
bringing.
very interested in reading
Yeah.
more into this.
Yeah, I think it's
absolutely.
something we have to consider, so.
Yeah.
Agenda item 807 is an information item. The administration continues to have openings for custodial and paraprofessionals. Flyers are attached with additional information for anyone interested.
Thank you, Mr. Redor.
Yeah.
I'll speak briefly to this.
Sure.
For those of you following along, this has been a standing item for several months now. Part of our strategic plan to actively recruit for some of our hard-to-staff positions. So those of you in the audience, if you have encouraged others to apply for paraprofessional opportunities and they fail to do so, tell them as of moments ago, they're too late, we are now fully staffed. Having said all of that, we will continue to have that position posted to continue to pull applicants. Those are really important roles in our organization and always helpful to have a pool of qualified candidates. As it relates to custodians, we are still trying to hire. We have 4 additional openings, both full-time and part-time available for both of these role groups. To reiterate, not only do you have the opportunity to do meaningful work, access to tremendous value of family benefits plans, opportunity to participate in a pension plan through the state, in addition to working in a great team environment in a great organization.
Thank you. Agenda item 808 is an information item. Administration would like to schedule a staff services governance meeting on April 8th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. The topic for discussion will be the district's hiring process.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move to operational services. Mrs. Miller?
This is very exciting to approve, for the motion to approve the academic calendar here as attached.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, item number 9.02 is an information item
It's
for
an
board
action item.
consideration at the January planning meeting. The motion to approve the resolution to approve service order agreement and the E-rate letter of agency with Allegheny Intermediate Union for the regional wide area network services and the internet access service as attached. Do you want me to keep reading the rest of that there?
No. You're okay.
Anything else there?
You're okay.
That's good.
Next.
Okay. And item number 9.03, this is also an information item for board consideration at the January meeting, a motion to approve a service order and agreement and E-rate letter of agency with the Allegheny Intermediate Union for the regional wide area network RWAN services and the internet access service as attached.
Leslie, I'm just
Yeah.
curious, like, I don't remember why we do it this way. Like, why do we have first a resolution to approve the agreement and then the approval of the agreement? It seems kind of like redundant.
Redundant.
A little bit. Do we know? Okay. Do we care? I guess.
I don't think we do. We did talk about that, combining them. We decided to keep them separate because we've done that in the past, but I think they could be together.
Okay. Okay.
If the board's comfortable with combining the two, then we'll do that. That's fine.
I think so.
Let's combine them. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Every little bit.
I'll come out in the wash, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, item number 9.04 for information. Under the ESSER requirements, LEAs must still review or update their health and safety plan every 6 months up through September 30th of 2024. The plan was last included as an information agenda item in May of 22nd of 2023. Updated plans are not required to be submitted to the PDE, but must be posted on the district's website. The plan requires board approval only when it has been reviewed from the last approved version. The health and safety plan, in effect at the end of the 2022-2023 school year, will continue to be implemented for the 2023-2024 school year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to board business. Item 10.01. It's a motion to approve the advertisement of an RFP to procure legal services.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussions?
Mr. Moore said I have prepared some comments on this, but both for the board and the public record, but I'll wait until all the board members have weighed in.
Okay, okay. Any other discussion?
Well, I guess
Mark?
I'll go. So this is a little perplexing to me why this is an action item tonight. This should be handled very much like we just handled drones in section 8.06. We should have a discussion first. At the earliest, a motion perhaps in the regular meeting in January. So this should be a discussion item tonight. We've had no public discussions about this at all to date with this board. To do this right, and in the spirit of truly being transparent, we should discuss this before we vote on it. We don't even have a document to approve, so what are we advertising? So I will not be supporting this motion tonight. The earliest I would support it would be January 22nd, after we discuss it tonight and discuss it again on January 8th, and get a document that the public can see.
I also have some concerns about this policy, this action item. I was surprised to see this on an agenda, and it startled me to see it as an action item. I don't believe we are prepared as a new board to make a decision with no prior discussion or awareness. As of last week, 4 of us were part of the public, and now we are making a very drastic and substantial change without discussion. Why now? That's my first question. The new members aren't even up to speed on all the current legal issues, and our first executive session is after this meeting. Also, speaking to the draft proposal that we received on Friday, 7 calendar days to solicit proposals. I am not in the legal world. I'm not familiar with how proposals are sent out, but I am familiar with 7 calendar days being a very quick turnaround. Also, it seems that the timeline is inching towards a final decision by the board on January 8th. The draft also appears to be incomplete. To be fair, it is a draft. So I'm not understanding, one, who drafted the proposal. Would board members be given an opportunity to review the final proposal prior to being advertised? The way it reads right now is if we voted tonight, or how I interpret it, please correct me if I'm wrong, it means if we vote tonight, then the advertisement would start tomorrow. But currently, there's only a draft of it, so it's not a final proposal. A lot of details are missing. There are quite a few errors in the IEP. Things are not spelled out very clearly or effectively to get to solicit a proposal. And also, I was wondering, how long has this been considered? Has it had any public discussion? As a parent, a week ago, I had attended and watched most meetings over the past, I'd say, 3 years, and don't recall legal services being a topic of discontent. So I'd like some clarity on where this is coming from. So also I wanted to know, what is the impact on students and staff? We are a high-performing and historically stable body. This feels like it would be very destabilizing to take on right now. I agree with Mark, the nature of this becoming an action item on literal meeting 1 just doesn't feel right. Why not discuss this and then send out requests? Particularly, I know Mark's comfortable with January, but I would suggest closer to the summer so it can be less of a distraction and more something that we can take on. And also, as new board members, the onboarding hasn't even finished. So I feel like we need more time to get acclimated and also understand the scope and the cases that are currently facing our school district. And also, I have concerns of continuity of care, especially with the current cases and scope of onboarding for new law firms, the time and resources this transition would consume. I'd also like to know, when this decision was made, what were the positive impacts that you guys felt this would have on students to make this decision right now? And also, my understanding is that Pine-Richland has a long-standing and overall good relationship with GRB, and the new members have had one interaction so far, and that was an introduction to legal expectations of being a school board member. In my viewpoint, I attended it, and so did the other 3 new members. It was a very productive and positive meeting, and there was no indication that any new board members were unhappy with the experience. I may not be privy to that information. That might have been expressed to Dr. Miller outside of my scope. So really, for a lot of reasons, this doesn't make sense. What is the urgency and what is the motivation? I am not behind this with more information, and I make a motion to table it.
Okay, I would like to.
Point of order, we have a motion.
No one seconded.
Correct, you're right.
Well, I guess I'm inclined to second it, but I would like to hear more discussion. So I think Ashley brought up some questions. I think this would be really healthy for us to answer them and address them.
Point of order, since we do have a motion and a second, what's the order of precedence for a motion to table versus?
He did not. He didn't
second.
second. He
Oh, you
said he
didn't?
didn't want to
Okay, I
second it because he wanted to have discussion.
I
Right.
misunderstood. It
That's
was
okay.
confusing
Yeah,
how that was
that's
presented.
what I would like to have discussion as well. So this, in executive session prior to the election or this meeting, there's been discussions about legal services and a potential RFP. It's been fleshed out. Emily, this question would be for you. The executive content draft, can we have a draft that would be available to the public? That could be, and if we had an RFP, can it be in a public? Like, see here, it's an executive. Yeah.
You have the discretion to make a draft
Okay.
document
Okay.
public if
We
you would
could do
like.
it,
If it was
okay.
someone requested it under the right to know law, it would not be public, but you can choose
Okay,
to
so
make it
we
public.
could choose to make it public.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha. Okay, so we'd have to flesh it out. I am not inclined to have this as an action item. I'm always I don't know what word I want to use, is fan. I think things should start out as information items so people can flesh them out and then move to action items. So I'm not seconding anything, but I would also promote tabling this item, but I don't want to second it. I want to let people talk.
Okay.
I have two questions. I hear the concerns that are raised, and I think part of the issue, and we have been discussing this behind the scenes here in executive session since 2021, since December of 2021. So this is not a new item. And I think there's some complications in having public discussions about legal services. And most of the time that happens in executive session. Am I correct? I feel like some of the topics that we cover are sensitive in nature and may be best covered in executive session. So I feel like, and maybe you can answer that quickly, but I'm not done. Yeah.
It would depend on what specifically you were talking about, if it was executive session appropriate or not. Generally, like a third-party contract should be discussed out in public, but there, of course, could be situations that would be more appropriate for executive session.
Right.
Yeah.
And so many of the questions I feel like were raised, we can't answer in a discussion here without seeing or having the conversations, without putting that out to bid first and deciding together if our current council is the right fit or if we wanted to make a change. The question I think that is probably most pressing for me right now is, when was the last time that we put this out to bid as a district? Dr. Miller.
I'm prepared to make some comments, but I'll do that after the discussion. So they've been a partner of the district for close to 4 decades.
And when was the last time we had a review?
Like an RFP. When was the last RFP that was put out?
I've worked here since July 1, 2013. They've had continuous legal service since then. I'm unaware of, you called it a bid or an RFP.
Whatever.
I mean, it was 40 years ago.
So my opinion is that periodically, we should be reviewing all of our vendors, including legal services. And to not have done that sort of review for that such long period of time, I think as a board, we should have a conversation of what our options are, whether we want to, and continuation is still very much a consideration. But to have a conversation with multiple firms, bring them in, have interviews, and I think it's good governance to have that sort of review periodically. I think going 4 decades without, and we're not sure, I mean, that predates Dr. Miller and every single one of us here on this board, but going even since 2013, maybe have been too long to have had this conversation. And, we don't necessarily need to have an information item, correct, in order to have a motion to request proposals from firms.
That's correct.
I feel like the conversation is happening here and now, and whether there's a desire to explore what our options might be and to decide together whether our current solicitor is a good fit or if we wish to choose someone else. But I think it's long overdue.
I guess my point is I don't feel like I can contribute to this discussion because I have no basis of knowledge of what GRB has or hasn't done. So I feel like the 4 of us, I think I can speak pretty confidently that we can't be full-heartedly in this conversation. So right now, and I'm not disagreeing with the good governance and reviewing services, because I agree. I just think to spring it on us on our first meeting and say that it was put in as an action item and that this is considered discussion, I can't participate in that discussion because I have no knowledge base for this discussion. And so until I'm brought up to speed, I feel like I cannot participate in this discussion and make that decision.
And I would say the process, because from what I understand, there would be opportunity to whomever, and we would hope that GRB would submit for consideration moving forward, is that that's an opportunity to understand the full scope of services and to have those conversations during that interview process. That's when it would happen. You're not going to get that unless we sit down and do it and deliberately ask those questions of not only our current firm, but potential future firms.
So then, also going back to the timeline, I feel like, one, it's over the holidays, which seems very inconvenient, right? We're all going to be busy. We're all going to be spending time with our families. And so I don't know when that process will take place. As far as once we get the bids, I believe the timeline was 7 days, so the 19th for everything to be submitted. And then there would be review with select members. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I will be privy to that information. So then it's like there's holes in this as far as when will I learn that process? I don't feel like I fit in this right now, this timeline.
Well, I think the process, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
I feel like the process, it's a draft, and so we control the process, and not any one particular person on this board, but all of us together as members of this board collectively would control the process. So we would decide together what that timeline is. I think the decision tonight is not necessarily the process, but you look confused.
I am confused because tonight is an action item, and
The
we're saying, I guess I don't understand.
No, the
when-
action item is not, it's to put it out for a bid. It's a draft. We can control what that draft says, and we can adjust the timeline on the document before it goes out.
So when do we discuss adjusting the timeline? Because as it reads right now.
We can do that right now.
Because as it reads right now, it was going to be sent out. My understanding is tomorrow, because
we don't
the
appro-
19th.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't approve a bid. The RFP isn't something the board would approve. That would be developed by our administrative team and our leadership, and then we could.
You're wrong.
We
That's
don't
wrong.
approve the RFPs?
No, we develop it.
We develop
this,
it, but
and
we don't have to approve it. It doesn't need a vote.
There's so
the
many things.
actual
Well, actually,
document.
I'll wait until you finish and others talk, because there's a few things I want to come back to about what you said, Christina.
Okay, but the document itself, what we send out to firms, does not need to necessarily be approved by the board, correct? The action of doing it does.
Well, there's always been a courtesy given to the board about any document that's advertised for RFP. The board has a chance to review it. It doesn't need formal approval, but there's been a courtesy extended, and every document before it's been advertised has been completed. Nothing's been approved and advertised in a draft form. So whether or not we can do it is irrelevant to me, because it doesn't seem to be the right way to do it. And you said something, this is what I wanted to just correct for the record. There has never been any public discussion about this, ever.
Right now, we're having it right
Well, yeah,
now.
so
Like,
right now,
there's-
on tonight,
But
which
there's no
could be
requirement that
discussion.
but we bring many things
Christina,
to
you would
the
be the
board.
first
Just a
to
minute.
object, and you would cite lack of transparency if this was something you didn't support. You would be the first to do
No,
that.
I just wouldn't vote for it.
None of that.
No, you would not just not vote for it. You would make your voice heard. I know you. You would.
Oh, you know me, Mark? Okay, I mean, if this is the
You would-
tone you want to set
you would
now.
definitely vocalize your objection
Can
to how we're
someone
handling
please
it.
tell me the legal basis? We can bring, I know we do it all the time, there are things the public hasn't seen that we bring for votes, that people see 24 hours before, and then we have to vote on it. So I feel like saying that we want to request proposals from firms for this is not out of the realm of legality. There's nothing non-transparent from what we're doing tonight.
Everything's not transparent about this. Everything, the way we're handling this is not transparent. Has anyone in the public seen this draft RFP? No.
Does anyone see?
That would be a no.
Do we see other drafts prior
Yes.
to?
We do.
All right,
sure we do.
RFPs, pretty sure?
May
Yeah.
May
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
yield to me?
darn sure.
May you yield to me? Okay. All right, let me make a couple of comments. GRB serves at the pleasure of the board. Correct?
Correct.
We could tonight had a motion on here that says, we will choose XYZ as our new legal counsel. And would we be allowed to do that?
Yes.
But we're not going to do that. We're not, because we do want to have information out to the public. We want to understand this, right? We're not chosen XYZ. What we're doing right now is we're saying, we want to approve the advertisement. We want to go out to do an RFP. Now, the RFP is attached in executive content. Why? So that the board can view it. The board can say, I don't like the timing. Above the timing, it says, this might be a little aggressive, so we need to have some discussions. Did it not say that on top? It said that on top of the timing. And as we went through it, we call this a draft. It says draft on every page. What does that mean? That means that we all have an opportunity to make recommendations on this. We're not going out and picking somebody right now. We're going out there to say, yes, we want to go out there and look at it. We will take a look at this RFP. We will agree to the timing of this as a board. We'll have it ready to go, and then we'll submit it out to, and then you will apply, others will apply, we will interview, then it becomes an education. Then we understand what's going on here, because we've never done this before, but we will then all understand what happens. And so that's the plan right now, to be able to do that. All right, I yield.
You yield to the chair.
I have more questions if there's time
You may.
for
Yes, you may.
discussion.
I just don't forget, I'd like
I
to
will
be here.
not
Thank
forget you.
Okay. So now I'm confused because it sounds like what we're trying to accomplish is a discussion and not an action, because everything that has been proposed to us seemed firm because we were going to make a decision tonight in order to advertise. Let me go back and make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So what I have in front of me is a motion to approve the advertisement of an RFP to procure legal services. So if that motion got approved tonight, what draft would be used? And when would it be used? According to the draft, it would go out immediately because the first date was December 19th. So I guess I just want some insight on how this would work if we voted on it tonight to
So-
say yes. So where's the discussion to change these dates right now? Okay, but I feel like we're not really discussing it.
No, because we're
So-
arguing the point. I'm sorry. keep going.
I don't think it's arguing. I think it's, I need a level of understanding in order to engage in a dialogue. So in order for us to have this conversation, I feel like there needs to be some level of understanding of what we're actually discussing. Because to me, a motion to approve the advertisement of an RFP to procure legal services is not what you're saying we're trying to discuss. So this is why I am suggesting we table it, because it seems like we need to deal with separate things within this, such as timelines. What does it look like? You said administration is going to be a part of this, but how can they be a part of it whenever we're just bringing it up tonight and then the action's going to take tonight? So that's where I'm feeling uncomfortable with this whole process. I'm totally up to discussing this, and if that's what we want to start, if we kind of want to give us a little mini agenda of what we need to break down, then I would love to start that discussion. So if that means the timeline, then let's open it up to the timeline.
Would you be more comfortable if the timeline changed? Because I would be partial if we were to make the timeline, and now I lost it because my computer won't slide, if it was after the holidays, like after.
Well, I have, yeah, the
Yes.
dates I was thinking,
Yeah.
so like, we're not, I fully support doing this.
Yeah, same.
The what is not the issue with me, it's how we're going about doing this, and the fact that it's all of a sudden an action item tonight. So if we were to discuss it, change it to discussion tonight, which is what we're doing, discuss it again January 8th, just like we're going to do with the drones, and then have it be an action item on January 22nd. That would be an acceptable timeline to do this right and still accomplish what we want to accomplish.
I would be partial if even we made it an action item on January 8th meeting. I mean, I feel like we discussed it now, and I mean, I think the timeline is, to me, and like I said, I'm always partial that something is information and then it moves to action item, and that's how I feel about it. If, either if we could move it to then, or at least change the timeline, because again, I agree, it is kind of like rush holidays, and, we want to interview people, we want to be thoughtful about this, and those are my thoughts.
Do we need to change the timeline to be able to, do we have to change when we vote on whether or not we want to have an advertisement of the RFP? Can we vote on that tonight and change the timeline? Because the timeline's not what we're voting on. We're just voting on putting out an RFP.
Well, I think we are voting on the timeline because it's in the draft, correct?
No,
No.
no.
No, we're not. we're voting on the fact that we want to go out for an RFP. Once we agree with this motion, if the motion passes, then we got work to do. We got to go finalize the RFP.
But that's
We
not
gotta-
how I read it. The way it reads to me is if we approve tonight, that advertisement goes out. And that's the way the timeline reads. And that's where I feel like we need to table this, have a new draft, maybe rework what the motion says, and then I'm totally open to doing an action item on January 8th if we can get all these things to all of us prior to that day. Because like Mark and Amy and Christina, I'm not opposed to learning through this process, not at all. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to grow, and I'm here to work with you guys. So like, it's just, I don't feel comfortable with the way it's written. There's a lot of things that I don't understand, that I feel like we all don't understand, and that it would just be better to move forward that way.
Can we approve going out to RFP without having a finalized RFP?
The way I've seen it work in other places is it would more be, maybe you appoint a committee or designate a person to put together the RFP. And then that would be reviewed by the board. And once the board was okay with how the RFP read, then you would move to, like, vote to advertise that. That's how I've seen other places do it. I'm not as familiar with how Pine-Richland handles its its RFPs, but that's, majority of my clients, that's the way they would do it. They would have authorize someone to prepare it. Once it's prepared, the full board would get a chance to look at it. Correct. And what you would be voting on at that point would be the actual RFP that's going to be advertised.
So I think what she's saying, we would develop a proposal from now until the next meeting, and that could be a committee, that could be an individual,
Designated
whatever
person.
we decide as a board, then we could say, then on January 8th, that would be made available to us prior. We could review it just like we do everything else. If we had questions, we could go out to the contact and say, hey, what does this mean? And then we could take action on that item on that night.
And just one point, if there was a committee, it should be 4 or less, just to avoid sunshine law issues.
Okay.
Need another meeting to vote.
Correct. And what you would be voting on at that point would be the actual RFP that's going to be advertised.
So I think what she's saying, we would develop a proposal from now until the next meeting, and that could be a committee, that could be an individual,
Designated
whatever
person.
we decide as a board, then we could say, then on January 8th, that would be made available to us prior. We could review it just like we do everything else. If we had questions, we could go out to the contact and say, hey, what does this mean? And then we could take action on that item on that night.
And just one point, if there was a committee, it should be 4 or less, just to avoid sunshine law issues.
Okay.
I'm interested in hearing Dr. Miller's comments.
Well, I know he wants to go last.
I have
but-
one question. If I can get my microphone. If this were to pass tonight, okay, and this timeline's not, I don't think everybody is all comfortable with it, to vote again in January to have the timeline finalized, or, I'm asking you, Emily, like how that would work.
No, I mean, if you were inclined to vote on it tonight, I think it would be good to at least get a consensus from the board as to what that timeline should be,
Okay.
because it sounds like there's not yet been agreement on that.
Not consensus.
So, yeah, so I would suggest if you were to vote on it tonight, at least all have
Okay.
an understanding of what that timeline would be.
Any other comments?
Advertisement. What are we voting on if we're coming back with the dates? Like, if we make that motion to advertise, who's responsible now for that advertisement? What does that look like if a vote is made tonight and that happens? Walk me through it. I guess I need walk through this.
Yeah, that's okay. So the idea was that we are going to, if we vote, we say, yes, we're going to go out for RFP. Let's say we did this and the vote passed. Some dissented, some said yes. Okay, now we have work to do. Now we've got to go put together some individuals, no more than 4, to sit there and to finalize, put the proposal together this week, make sure that this is set up the way we want it to be, the RFP.
But that's not what it says. I guess that's where I struggle.
Yeah, but it does say that we have the right to amend or cancel the RFP, so that is even, it says it in the draft. I do see that point.
Right, but that's in relationship to the people that are, that's not in relationship to us. It is, but in the way that the draft's written, it's in relationship to those that are seeking to submit a proposal. So that's where I feel like the motion tonight should be to approve the timeline of the RFP. And then we could have a second, you could have added something to it to say, and then we approve this action. I guess that's where I'm at.
Other comments? Okay.
Good.
I think you got the.
Thank you. I prepared some comments in advance that I'll read, but I'll start with a little bit of the Finance Committee meeting that we had at 6 o'clock. So one of the phrases, we had a lot of content on our Finance Committee meeting. We had the audit report, which occurs only once a year, with a significant amount of information about the organization. We had benchmarking around how we operate and what that means. We had capital funding discussion and what the future looks like. One of the phrases that I heard at the 6 o'clock finance meeting was the challenge of drinking out of the fire hose when it comes to new information as we have a newly formed and developed board. And this is an equally important topic from my perspective. So I'll share my input in my role as superintendent and as an education administrator. Staff and community members may not realize that I am a non-voting member of the board with the right to be heard on issues facing the board. While I don't have the right or responsibility to vote, I do take the responsibility of my input and my recommendations to the board very seriously. The views that I share are my professional thoughts, grounded in my certification, my training, and my experience. The board has the authority to select the solicitor. In my experience, board members and the community at large are not fully aware of the broad scope of legal services provided to and necessary for a Pennsylvania public school to operate. Staff and community members often see the solicitor, in our cases, Dawn Palmer typically, we have Emily Mueller here tonight, seated at the table, but they don't understand the specific areas of practice provided by a law firm and the teamwork to provide support with a foundation specifically in school law and among many other areas. GRB has been a legal partner for Pine-Richland for almost 4 decades. That does not mean they must always be the law firm of the district, but it does reflect significant history of counsel and collaboration. The topic of a legal RFP has not been publicly discussed, at least in the decade and a half that I have been here. GRB's engagement far precedes my tenure. In my tenure, I have worked with 26 different board members. I've worked with 5 board presidents. GRB has worked with superintendents as far back as Dr. Storkel, Dr. Szymanski, Dr. Manley, Dr. Butchie, and me. GRB has likely worked with hundreds of Pine-Richland school board members. My input is not about the authority of the board. I've shared that clearly. It does have to do with the why, the when, and the how of the consideration. I have concern about the potential for political influence in an important matter. We are in a period of transition with 4 newly elected board members. There is a tremendous amount of learning that comes with a governance transition. Some of that learning is embedded in the onboarding process of the board members and the required training that they will receive. In the case of legal services, it's even more specific training in scope, responsibility, people, and other matters that may be before the district. I am not clear on the urgency of the topic. We have other critical and timely priorities. One example is negotiations preparation with the bargaining unit that will occur later tonight in an executive session. Since the board has not discussed a legal RFP, the RFP itself requires attention. For transparency, the board may consider also the process for receiving, evaluating, and ultimately recommending either the incumbent firm or a different firm. It would be my recommendation that the board engage in background learning and discussion prior to next steps. That would provide context for a vote on an RFP and ultimately for the elements of the RFP itself. Examples in legal services include practice areas such as student matters, staff matters, litigation, right to know, construction, special ed, real estate, and more. Thank you, Mr. Morset.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
I'd like
Any-
to second Ashley's table.
Okay, we have a, and just to be clear, let's remind everybody what this is
Point of
again.
order, does she need to make her motion again?
Yeah,
Does she need to make her motion again?
because that was previous before, so we
Oh.
did.
Okay.
Wasn't a second, so we
I
didn't-
I didn't second it because I wanted to have discussion.
Right.
Okay.
But let's make the motion now.
Okay.
I motion to table this.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion, and it's been seconded.
Ms. Morse, I'd like
No.
to request a roll call vote.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
no discussion for that, so.
Yes,
table.
yes, and there's no more discussion for that, yes. And there will be a roll call, okay. Mrs. Lund, let's do, whether we table this.
This is the motion to
The motion is
table.
to table this discussion,
The motion to approve
and yes, the motion to approve. a
the
tabling.
advertisement of an RFP.
No.
The motion
no.
to approve the tabling.
Motion to table.
Yeah, motion to
Yes.
table the motion to
Item,
approve.
item 10.01.
Correct, yeah.
It'll be easier to say that.
Ready?
Yep.
Mrs. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Wheathorn?
No.
Mrs. Turchick?
Yes.
Mrs. Brusalis?
No.
Mr. Cassidy?
Yes.
Mr. Kashani?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillman?
No.
Mrs. Miller?
No.
Mr. Morset?
No.
That's 5 noes and 4 yeas. Noes win. It does not get tabled.
Okay.
Are we able to still discuss?
Yes.
Okay. Can we discuss the timeline, please?
Yes.
Okay.
What is your recommendation?
I recommended tabling it, so my recommendation would be to do it after the holidays, to make some sort of committee, but I don't think that's possible because our motion is to approve the advertisement. So my timeline would be with collaboration of who this affects. So who does this affect? Who's involved in this? It's not me. I'm not going to be drafting this RFP.
No,
So
we would have we could say we want a committee of no more than 4 to sit and to finalize the draft, because it's only a draft right now, right? We still have to go through and finalize the proper wording. We have to finalize the proposal timeline.
Can we, together here, if we were to land on, I don't even know, I'm not looking at a calendar, January 6th, I don't even know what the first week of January looks like, and put that on here, and if we all agreed, amend it here, and then if it passed, or did you want more changes than that? I mean, that's kind of the only, that's the part that concerns me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is the timeline. Because once, I think we can work out the others, but that's the thing that concerns me is the timeline. It feels a little rushed, and it's, you know,
Well,
like
can we
I said, coming
adjust
against the
that here
holiday.
and now? I mean, I feel like that doesn't necessarily need a vote.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if we were to make that adjustment on here now, and then it
And-
were to pass, I would feel better.
And I
this is why I
support-
think we should table it, because the motion is to approve the advertisement. So once we approve it, it could technically be advertised tomorrow. So we're not making a motion to approve the timeline, we're making a motion to approve the advertisement. And what I'm saying is, who's involved in that development of the advertisement, and will we get to see a draft of that? There's nothing in this proposal that says I will get to see a draft before it goes out. So I need to know, like, that's something that we need to know as a group. And that's why I'm suggesting we table it, so we can gather all of this information.
Point of order,
and we can-
we've already had that vote, so
Yeah.
that's,
That's bad.
I'm saying, like, the things we're discussing don't relate to this motion, I guess, is where I'm struggling.
Mr. Morset?
Yes.
The motion itself could just be amended to indicate motion to approve blah, 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 no sooner than, pick a date, and that would provide a time period for the work to be done, the RFP to be developed, the board to see it. So it wouldn't be this exact motion, it would be a board member suggesting an amended motion. Again, example would be motion to approve the advertisement and RFP to procure legal services no sooner than next board meeting is January 8th or something like that. January 22nd was what Mr. Kashani suggested.
Yeah, I was just speaking to Emily, about that, if we could adjust the recommended action to something like motion to approve the creation of the RFP to procure legal services by January 8th.
Could we do the 22nd? Because we still have some onboarding even into January. So I feel like the 22nd would be a nice.
This is just to be advertised, like you don't.
This is just to start a process.
To start the
This is just
process.
start the
Right, but this is a huge process that
Yes,
we're undertaking. So
but
I feel
it will
like
take some
due
time.
diligence
One at a
is
time,
probably.
please.
It
I'm
will
good with
take
eight.
some time for firms to respond. So if we advertise it, and I don't have a calendar in front of me, that first week of January, second week of January, whatever the date is that we decide upon, it will still take probably a few weeks a couple of weeks for firms to respond, and then even more time for us to interview those firms. So we're talking already, if we approve this tonight, a 2-month process.
Okay, so you can see my confusion of the original draft of the proposal was 7 days, 7 calendar days. So all I'm coming off of is this knowledge. So I appreciate the insight because I didn't know that it should take that long.
Phil, can we
So-
take a vote on the motion for the 8th?
Yeah, I'd like to
Yes.
make can I make that? I'll
Yeah,
make
you
a
can.
motion to approve, I'm going to summarize what Dr. Miller said, approve the advertisement of the RFP to procure legal services by January 8th. Is that how we would reword it?
It'd be a motion to amend. Motion to
Motion
amend.
to
item
amend.
10.01, motion to approve.
Yes, to approve the
advertisement of an RFP to procure legal services by January 8th.
By January 8th, yes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we, all in favor, do we want to do a roll call on that? Or
We
do
can do a
wanna-
roll
I think
call.
it's
Is there discussion? Do we have discussion on it?
I just have a quick
Yes.
question of how, when we vote, we're just voting to amend it and then we have to vote on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. So to be clear, let's restate the change that was already seconded. And that is to, how would that read again?
Motion to amend item 10.01, motion to approve the advertisement of an RFP to procure legal services by January 8th.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we have that already seconded.
And then who will work on that committee?
Well, we got to vote
That's
on
the
it.
next
We got to
thing.
vote
We gotta-
first.
We got to vote, we got to vote, we got to vote. All right. Any
You wanna do roll call?
clarification, any discussion on that amendment? Okay, good. All right, and we'll just do overall vote. Why don't we just say all those in favor?
Yes.
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 Anyone opposed?
No.
Yes, no.
So we had
Two noes.
Two noes.
Two noes.
Two noes. Two noes, okay. So the motion passes
Motion
that,
to amend
that the
passes.
recommended action has changed to that. Okay, so now we have this wording changed. Okay, so now we have forth an action, motion to approve the advertisement RFP for legal services by January 8th.
Second.
I got a second. Okay. Now, do we want to do a roll call on this? All right. All those in favor? Yes.
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 All those opposed?
No.
No.
2 noes. Okay. So now the plan is to have this done and created by the 8th of January, which now refers to your comment, Leslie, about how do we go about doing this? So typically, when you do this, as Emily has said, we would want 4 people who, no more than 4, who can then work with this to make sure we finalize the timing, finalize the wording, and making sure we have this here. Do I have to put forth a motion to say or just ask for volunteers
I
who
think
would
we
want
can
to
just
work
ask
on
for
this?
volunteers.
Yeah, you can ask
Yeah.
for volunteers.
Yeah. We'll just ask for volunteers who wants to work on this document.
I'll volunteer.
All right, Mike.
I can volunteer as well.
I don't count towards the 4 as a non-voting member. I'd be glad to
Well, I
participate
think
since
that's
this
a
has been
given.
approved.
Oh, yeah.
That
It-
would be a given.
No one said it was a given.
Well, okay.
So,
But
but I appreciate you saying that,
That
yeah.
would be-
Well, 100%, absolutely. Okay.
I'd like to be involved.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Lisa?
Yeah, I'd like to volunteer.
Okay.
That's 4.
That's 4.
That's 5?
That's
That's
4, I think,
4
right?
with
I guess
board
you didn't
members.
put yourself on the list.
Oh, we could do the superintendent, not county as one.
Correct, it would just be voting.
Has to be 4 board, we can't have.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and, yeah, okay. All right. Good.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
10.02.
Just kind of a few comments, same topic. So
Yes,
I
you
think there's the development of the RFP, so we've established that. Part of what I think you had drafted included sort of a little bit of the evaluative process. I think having that spelled out, whether it's spelled out in the RFP or communicated clearly, the process could be communicated at the January 8th board meeting. So if we have a meeting that night, again, it's going to take, as Mrs. Brusalis said, weeks for responses, but when those responses are received, the process by which they will be evaluated and by whom, I think the more that can be shared about that, the better for everybody's awareness and readiness. The other thing, we haven't finalized onboarding. We have an onboarding scheduled. Our next one is next Tuesday. The focus was going to be academic achievement strategic plan. We have a time slot we could consider to some of this topic for background information of the 4 newly elected members, or we can try to schedule another one, the January, whatever, 3rd through 5th, whatever the end of that first week is after the new year, for onboarding, just background information. So that offer is on the table as well.
Okay. Very good. All right. Move on to item 10.02, student culture and diversity. It's a information item. The administrators and board members will discuss the planned actions for the 2023-2024 school year related to the school culture and diversity.
Kick that
We,
off.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So our core, it was 4, was 2 at our last meeting on December 6th. That was Mrs. Hillman, Mrs. Brusalis that joined the team that we talked about earlier. And as I shared earlier in the meeting about that particular group, we talked about shared ownership of this initiative too, and the impact that shared ownership we believe will have on our schools. When our administrators and our teachers here, that our board and our central office administrators are equally supportive of the changes that we want to make to help support the culture and diversity and understand that at each of our 6 schools, that empowers them to do the work that really matters in those buildings. So we are looking for 2 additional board members to join, and that is part of what we're going to do at our board meetings, is provide updates of what we have done since our last board meeting and what we're proposing to do in our buildings moving forward, and listen for feedback. If you're comfortable with that, then we want to move forward, and that empowers our staff to feel good about those incremental changes. We're not looking to make leaps, we're looking to make incremental changes to help support all students. And I always think about the vision of the portrait of graduate and student readiness for life past Pine-Richland. So that's what this group is challenged to do and will continue to work through. So tonight, we just want to provide you with, again, some updates that have occurred since our last board meeting. They're listed here. We had our Core Plus 2 meeting on December 6th, and we held focus groups with our middle school and high school students. So we have a group of school leaders. Those students are selected by administrators and teachers, and we're looking for a diverse group of kids, backgrounds, experiences, races, everything that all the ways people are different. We're looking to try to get a subsection of our students and listen to them. We did invite all board members. Mr. Lyons and Mr. Kashani were able to join us for those meetings. And you can see the list of questions that we pose to the students, both at the middle school and high school. I'd say overall, students are happy. I mean, they are enjoying their experience at Pine-Richland, but they also tell us there's areas for opportunities as well. Some students, depending on personality and interest, don't feel as connected as others. And we want to think about that and learn about that and make appropriate adjustments as we go. And we heard students talk about they feel the difference of socioeconomic status. As a student, they feel that, they see that, and that they're impacted by that. So what does that mean in terms of what we can do to support them? We heard about our kids in terms of how they're engaging with these conversations that we're sharing. So one of the initiatives has been share with our student body at the administrative level of things that are going really well in each of our 6 buildings, and also talk about the things that we're challenged with and have those explicit conversations with our students. The students are hearing that. They shared that with us. K to 3 and I don't know if my battery's going bad. I don't know if that means I'm talking too much or what, but our K to 3 and high school students, we see that in terms of evidence of lack of incidents. We have had a number of incidents at Eden Hall in the middle school that continue to arise around things like culture and diversity. So that just tells us there's opportunities to continue to work with our students. They also shared with us that they're not hearing that follow-up at home. So one of the things that we've been really trying to do is connect our parents to these topics. So every time that administrators are talking to kids at the 6 buildings, we're sending out those communications to the families, like, here are the topics that we're talking to your kids about. Please have those conversations at home. So we need to figure out better ways to communicate with our families so they can have those conversations at home as well. So moving from there, we have a couple of action items moving forward that we discussed at our last Core Plus 2, and you're going to hear from different members of our core team to talk about those. Ms. Brusalis and Mrs. Hillman were nice enough to volunteer to talk a little bit about what does the Core Plus 4 do. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add other than
I feel like we talked about it earlier, so I'm happy to repeat or answer any more questions. But we meet every other month about, and the focus groups are coming up. So, that's a commitment that we also make, but also that's an invitation to all board members to attend, because I think it's a valuable opportunity to hear and to ask questions as well sometimes of our school community, whether it's our students, our parents, our teachers. So it's, even if you're not on the committee, I think that's a great way to just get plugged in and just get an opportunity to learn.
Okay, so what you're about to hear are some proposed action items, again, coming out of that Core Plus 2 meeting, and then we'll listen to any feedback you have. And we're going to start with Mr. Glickman.
Thank you, Dr. Pasquinelli. So I'm going to start on long-term goal, number 2 of the workforce development category of our strategic plan, essentially points to this topic as it relates to professional development for our educators. And so last year, I think it was April of 2022, State's Board of Education passed updated regulations for Chapter 49. Chapter 49, for those of you who don't know, essentially sets the requirements by which educators earn, maintain their certification. And so the State Board of Education regulations outlined a requirement that culturally relevant sustaining education competencies become part of that continued education and induction experience. Following that, the Pennsylvania Department of Education developed some guidelines. During our strategic planning process, we heard some concern around the guidelines that were developed by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and ultimately arrived at a decision to develop our own local response to the updated Board of Education regulations. And so outside of the statutory requirements, we know, I believe we feel strong. I know I feel strongly that there's value to be gained for our staff in training related to teaching diverse learners in an inclusive setting. And so reflecting on how students differ and accounting for that in their lesson planning and instructional approaches, developing engagement strategies that build off students like real life, real world experiences, trauma-informed approaches to education. So those are just some examples, but the list of potential topics is beyond those, right? And so we're aware that a lack of cohesion between administration and our board on this topic can create a chilling effect, right? It interferes with our individuals and our workforce's ability to move forward with confidence and conviction. And so never really want to do that, period, for a collaborative workforce that works really hard to educate our students, but let alone in a manner that could really jeopardize essentially their ability to maintain certifications that they went to school for and do all kinds of additional continuing education to maintain. And so we talked about having the core +4, hopefully, begin to identify areas of agreement within these competencies as a starting point, because there's plenty of that. And so then developing the resources and professional learning experience that would support the requirement seems to me like a prudent step. Once those sessions are developed, we would then bring it back for the larger board in the cadence that Mrs. Brusalis described earlier, sort of core +4, full board approach before moving forward.
We'll pause there. That's action item 1, if there's any questions or comments about that. Okay, the second action item was just to continue that, those opportunities with our school administrators to share cultural improvements that are happening within their schools and celebrate those opportunities, be explicit about the things that we will not tolerate and cannot tolerate, and then follow up. Again, we want to modify how we do it, but continue to follow up with our parents when we're sending out those messages to our students, so those at-home communications can happen as well. So that's a second rec of coming out of the core +2 meeting. Any comments on that one? Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Paxton's going to take the next action item.
So one of the things that we talked about specifically was just having our kids really feel connected, and how can we get all students connected, and part of the just feeling connected to the school, feeling safe at school, positive school climate. So that's one of the things that we want to really work on, those focus groups, and work with our students on.
Do you want to talk about that? Anybody have anything else on that?
Questions about
specifically?
that one? And it's really our students share that with us. They want to feel connected. So how do we communicate specifically with our parents, but also how do our kids feel connected and feel safe and feel good about school?
Example we shared at that meeting were things like mentorships. So how do you get perhaps high school students connecting with middle school students connecting with Eden Hall, and so on, so that transition's a little smoother from one school to the next. So we'll pause there again, just to be sorry. Any comments or questions on that action item?
Did the students have any suggestions or ideas of how that could improve?
One of the things that from middle school going to high school is really, I think, understanding the program of studies is one. That they're overwhelmed with, there's so much information in those opportunities, which is awesome. There's a lot of courses that students have to choose from, but it's a bit overwhelming too. So perhaps 9th graders that just experiencing that and working with the 8th graders is something that we're talking about to help with that transition and really understand how to spend their time. There's not a ton of choices at 9th grade because of the structure of their schedule, but as students get older, there's more and more opportunities to connect with those who have already experienced that.
I would just like to add too, one of the things that our seniors shared, if they shared specifically, if they only knew and if they could share that information with 9th graders, what a great opportunity for that mentorship and feeling connected. So they gave us some great input that we want to continue to share as a group.
We even talked about the kind of pressures that the students feel to always be performing and taking all the AP. Like there are certain segments of kids, there's a social pressure that has them putting pressures on themselves that are not healthy and that aren't the right fit for everybody. So talking about having upperclassmen, some of whom have applied to and gotten into a college and didn't have to take, millions of AP classes or whatever that might look like for them, that there is a path to success from another peer who's experiencing it. We discussed talking with parents about that too, so that in the ways in which students perform here and expect a lot of themselves, that's a cultural piece as well, right, that we need to be looking at. So that's another thing to address. The final strategy that we want to speak about and get a little bit of input on is how we can further engage for parent input. So in the past, if you think back to when the School Culture and Diversity Leadership Council at large, we had about 40 people coming together participating, that the participation numbers were not always there, and folks had described not always feeling comfortable expressing their thoughts. So we took a step back from that and we moved to the focus groups with the students because that was most insightful. And now we want to also make sure that we're engaging parents and community voice within this process. And so we talked about perhaps tying it to other events that are happening in the schools as kind of a happenstance. You can walk into a space, answer some questions if you would like, kind of on the fly to get some folks' input, and not have it be set up as, a committee of the same voices, repeatedly coming together. And that perhaps there is benefit in having individual conversations in a smaller group where folks will speak more freely about their own experiences and their insights. So if you have any ideas about what you think might be palatable to families or might want to engage them in an interest, we're happy to hear that. We'll try anything to try to get some more folks' input.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, very good, thank you. Love the idea of the mentorship. That's outstanding. I mean, you see it all over the place, and that's great that you're pursuing that. Excellent. Okay, does that take care of 10.02? We're good? Okay, all right. 10.03, the AIU Board of Directors nomination. It's an information. I do know the school board has received a notice that the 2 seats have become available on the AIU Board of Directors, and these seats must be filled by a sitting school board member, preferably an experienced member, but that's out there. Okay. Any comments on that? Good. 10.04 is just an information item. I know that this has been in the public, or at least an idea of this in the public domain for a while. It's the opt-out form update. Previously, the board has asked the solicitor to create a draft opt-out form. There's been a lot of discussion inside the board, and I guess a final version of the form should be forthcoming in an upcoming board meeting. And then 10.05, schedule a board workshop. It's an information item. Administration would like to schedule a board workshop on March 11, 2024, 5:30 to 7 p.m. This workshop would complete the onboarding requirements for newly elected board members as well as holdover board members. Okay. All right. That brings us to meeting closing. 11.01, does anyone have any reports to share? No other reports from committee? Okay, very good. No? Yeah, he shook his head no. Yeah, that's why I moved around to see if there's anyone else. Okay, very good. All right. Move to 11.02, recognition of visitors. Do we have? There she goes. Anybody online at all? Do you remember? 2? Okay.
Or had to anyway. Mr. Stovner, if you want to call Nyla Griffin.
And I just want to remind everybody, we will have a timer up on the screen, 3 minutes. And I know that there's a maximum of 3 minutes allowed, and I'll give you a 15-second warning ahead of time before you reach that. But everybody did really well the first part of the meeting, so we'll carry on.
Hi, Ms. Griffin. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, you're on with the board.
Hi, sorry, Hi, sorry, give me 1 second. I was doing elf stuff. That time of night. I just wanted to come on tonight to tell a little story. I was at the polls in May with Mike Weghorn. We were friendly with comments back and forth, and as I left, I said, if you win, you'll be seeing a lot more of me. He said, I bet I can change your side. And I said, I don't know about that because I have a transgender daughter. He asked to speak for a few more minutes, and we agreed that there are solutions and middle grounds to be found on many issues. I said that there's no middle ground when it comes to human rights and morals, though. He assured me that he would fight for and defend my daughter. I'm sharing this tonight to hold him to his word. Last meeting, Morissette stated he was given a mandate by the community, and he certainly was. As a school board member, every one of you has a mandate to protect, defend, and nurture every single child at Pine-Richland. You have a mandate to represent the school responsibly and with bipartisanship. You have a mandate to be a beacon of progress, not backward thinking. You have a mandate to put aside your own religious, political, and personal beliefs for the good of every student every time. You have a mandate to support our outstanding teachers and admin so that Pine-Richland can continue to have the kind of staff other schools can only dream of. If you are unable to do that, then you should not be in the position of power that you are, not when so many others genuinely care about this school and the kids here, and have a lot more experience and expertise than most of the board does now, unfortunately. I frankly find it embarrassing that a lawyer that directly attacked a group of students is now on the board despite his pretty words to me in the spring. Every single member of this board has a mandate to do better by this community every single day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next online speaker, Mr. Stovener, Kathleen Ravati. Ms. Rabati?
Possible, thanks.
Hello?
At the tone, please
We'll come back. Okay, our first in-person speaker is Timothy Nolan.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's been a long-term follower of board actions and so on. It was my first time being able to address everything here. So, I'm Tim Nolan. I'm a resident of Richland Township. My youngest is at Eaton Hall. My eldest was a student for 9 years since we moved here in 2012, mostly on the basis of the strength of the school district, which I hope to encourage and see things moving forward here. That's a segue into my first request. Up on the board here, it is said that a member of the community should come here to speak. I'm very concerned about the precedent set at October 23rd, where somebody can come with a piece of paper that says roommate. I don't think somebody from North Carolina or Colorado or Bucks County should be in attendance here. We are voters, we are taxpayers in this district, and we're the people that want to interact with our board. So my direct action is please confirm that the people who speak are residents or taxpayers through whatever means necessary, as stated on the board. Furthermore, on item 10.01 today, you may believe again in the Roberts Rules of Order for, as we were discussing, the solicitor. But a reminder as well, we live under the rule of law and within a framework of rules and laws set either by the state and so on. We are not law unto ourselves. I've seen many times the solicitor has protected this board and this district from making mistakes that would violate sunshine law or other similar ideas that would leave us open to ridicule, censure, any other kind of thing. So please continue with the people who do have that experience. Finally, we are coming out of an election cycle. And election cycles, we get very polarized things. We get sound bites, we get Facebook posts that are summarized in 10 seconds that get people very emotional. But I think we should return to more of a discussion. Now, I'm adding on, I don't have the eloquence of Brianna or many of the others that have spoken here. But a big issue that came up and was still on the agenda today was books, and which ones are we trying to remove and why. Now, it will ultimately come up to you, as from what I understand. Dr. Miller, thank you for your taking us through the procedure and everything here. Remember that we've been talking about inclusion and everything here, and that quite often LGBTQ kids are excluded from this. We don't even bring them up and what's going to affect them in these cases. They can be easily excluded. They want representation. People are very concerned about the contents of these books. Now, it's difficult to discuss it, right, with the kind of things, but we're talking about things like sexual assault and so on, for which people are often targeted. Having these on the
15
bookshelves
seconds.
shows that we believe you. If these stories can be told, we believe these stories can be told. Please tell us if you need help. That will save lives and protect our students. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Laura Beth Matulovich.
Hi, my name is Laura Beth Matalevich. My family and I live on Pierce Mill Road. My daughter will be starting kindergarten next fall. And I was extremely disappointed to hear about the titles being challenged in our school district. The last school board meeting, those few who spoke in support of removing those titles challenged that they were not anti-lifestyle, read homophobic, but were in fact trying to protect minors from obscene and pornographic reading material. One gentleman even put it out there that you could purchase these titles at adult stores, which I called 3 different adult stores in the Allegheny County area. None of them even carry books, let alone young adult literature centered on heavy and traumatizing content. At a glance, 4 of the titles are authored by Black and Indigenous people of color. 9 out of 12 titles are authored by and/or feature queer people and LGBTQ themes. And 11 out of 12 titles were written and illustrated by women. In 7 of the 12 titles, some or all of the sexual acts referenced, both on and off page, are non-consensual and easily constitute sexual abuse, molestation, and rape. The idea that this content could be considered titillating or pornographic or arousing to your average reader, your average student, is disgusting, frankly. It's repulsive to take someone's story that they have so bravely shared, surviving abuse, and call it pornographic, call it titillating, explicit. That just blows my mind. And with 1/3 of the titles written by Black authors or people of color, and 3/4 of the titles being queer, and all but 1 title on the list authored by non-male writer, I think it's safe to say that this is not about being anti-lifestyle. This is about being homophobic, transphobic, racist, and misogynistic.
15 seconds.
I read every book on the list. I'll just really quickly, my favorite one on the list was 19 Minutes. My
Okay,
kid can be a
that's- time's
victim
up.
of a school
Time's
shooting,
up.
but she
Time's
can't read a
up.
book
Thank
about
you.
one? Because that's interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Ms. Lynn.
Next speaker is Therese Dawson.
Hello, good evening. I wanted to congratulate the board for starting their first meeting. Process takes time, but you know, if you're an emergency room doctor and someone needs CPR, you don't just go like, hey, I don't know how to save this person. You just do it, right? So there were a lot of items on the agenda that required a vote. And that means you jumped right in and did your job. And you did your job right into the end. Something I'd like to caution you about is while everybody's opinion is important and you should discuss, we're a community. We're not a political place. So for the administration to imply or make a comment that they are concerned about something being politicized, you should put your antennas up, because that's a tactic to get you to think and to get the community to think that there's some political activism going on. And that simply isn't what a school board does. They're a community. and you're all doing a good job, every single 9 of you. So I would encourage you to listen to each other and follow process and learn the process. Nothing wrong with not knowing the process. If you're in Congress, you start the day one. And orientation takes time, but that doesn't mean you don't resuscitate the person on the table. So thank you all for your service, and I look forward to being community with you.
Okay, thank you.
We have 2 more people who had already spoken, which is why I just skipped to Mrs. Dawson. Mike Barber.
Mike Barber, Richland Road. Dr. Miller, just another example of why you are so important to this district. Your leadership is admirable. The haphazard way that this meeting was governed, just it's a stark comparison to what you offer. So thank you. Dr. J, thank you. Dr. P, thank you. My representative, Ms. Miller, I would have liked to have heard why you voted on what was your reasons behind your vote on the solicitor. You know where to find me if you ever want to talk, so I'm always here.
Okay.
And then Mr. Kashani, thank you. You're not even my representative, but you've met up with me. You're willing to engage, and I wish you were our current president. So have a good night.
Our next speaker, Chris Bono.
Well, this is more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. I want to actually first thank the Mrs. Miller and Mr. Weather and Mr. Morissette for, I noticed the active listening that was actually going on during the discussion, both with the speakers at the beginning and also during the board discussion. So I think, you know, I don't think you voted right, but I appreciate the fact that you were actively engaged and you look like you wanted to be here and learn, and so I think that's a good sign. I'm a bit confused about how things get on the agenda. My understanding was that the board leadership sets the agenda, but yet I heard 2 members of the board leadership, Mrs. Turgic and Mr. Kashani, surprised that we had an action item on the agenda for tonight, which is something I don't recall ever happening in the 4-ish years I've been monitoring the board. So I wonder who is setting the agenda, and I think it was clear too that it was kind of done in a haphazard way. You know, to quote, right, the great musical Hamilton, you know, fighting is easy, governing is harder. Governing is always hard. It requires thought and time and patience and deliberation and not rushing into things to save, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I mean, what would it have cost to delay until the 8th initially to table? Nothing. But you would have gained some support, right, from members of the community who are concerned with a lack of deliberation and with maybe a political agenda and with maybe going on, you know, doing things without listening first. It seems to me that that's an own goal that y'all don't need to make. And the final thing I learned tonight, which is interesting, I mean, it always keep me on my feet, is it doesn't matter how many people are on the board of one political party or another, but Mrs. Broussales will still spend most of the meeting interrupting them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try Ms. Ravati one more time.
Okay.
Mr. Stuber. Ms. Ravati?
As soon as possible, thanks.
No? Okay, sorry. That's it. That's it.
Nope, that's it? Okay, all right, so we move to 12:01, adjournment of the meeting. Do I have motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Yep, second, okay, we're done. And, what? The board will meet in executive session right now to discuss safety and security and a couple other items.
You
Read them
need
all.
to read that.
It's negotiations with the PREA bargaining unit, personal item related to operations and transportation, and legal considerations of an opt-out form. Okay, thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. Be safe out there. Thank you.